Welcome back, Mr. Goodberry. The First Star Logistics studio is fully equipped and ready to record.
The bye week is almost over. Your Bengals head to San Francisco to take on the 49ers. Are the 49ers a rival? Depends on how old you are, I guess, and if you remember the 80s and the Super Bowls. But they play at 4:25 on Sunday, which concludes the bye week, gets us back to football, back to where we want to be. We're going to talk about the game, and we'll dive into the trade deadline, which happens on Tuesday, Halloween, 4 p.m., which clearly I've got an episode on Tuesday nights that'll be reviewing the game. Won't really have time to do a trade deadline video other than the parts we talked about on Tuesday, and then we'll dive in a little bit more today. I'm sure Malik Wright or maybe even Dave Lapham will have something. If something goes down at that time at the 4 o'clock hour on Tuesday, otherwise it'll be regularly scheduled. Bengals on the brain. I'm your host, Joe Goodberry. Show, as always, presented by First Star Logistics, bringing it to new heights, bringing me out to the Bengals-Bills game on next Sunday. Not to look too far ahead. They played on Thursday night against the Bucks. Struggled again, sort of. They looked like they were on track. Them didn't. Bengals could be getting two teams that are hungry for wins. Weird timing of the schedule, too, because the Bengals get 2 weeks to prepare for the Niners. Niners get 6 days. And then the Bills get 10 days to prepare for the Bengals. I guess it goes both ways then that way. But the 49ers, if you watch that Vikings game on Monday, you got to have some concerns 2 weeks in a row, I think, for the 49ers offense that really struggled versus the Cleveland Browns. And the Browns, after that game, everyone's like, oh, historic defense, historic. They're tremendous. And then the Colts with Gardner Minshew goes and chews up the Browns defense. Browns defense keeps them in the game. Mostly Myles Garrett. We talked about that. We talked about the AFC North games on Tuesday's episode if you didn't watch that. But where is the 49ers offense now? Brock Purdy may have been concussed. He's in the concussion protocol. And I said may have because of the late interceptions in that game. I'm wondering if that had an effect or not. Clearly, he wasn't effective, but was it the concussions? Did he not see things clearly? Was he not thinking clearly when he threw those? We'll have to see if he plays. Kyle Shanahan did say there's a chance he could be out of the protocol by Sunday, but no player has this year. This was a tweet from Adam Schefter and brought up some debate because he said no player that's been placed in the protocol has played that same week. And people brought up Cam Taylor-Britt. Didn't he come back and play the next week? I think that's a little bit different than what Schefter is keeping track of. Guys that are placed in the protocol the week of when you're practicing for that opponent on Sunday. If you're placed on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday in the protocol, nobody has made it out by Sunday. Shanahan is saying there's a chance that Purdy could. If not, it'll be Sam Darnold, the former. It's funny that we just watched Baker Mayfield, the first pick, versus Josh Allen, the sixth pick of that draft class. Sam Darnold was the other guy of that class. Originally thought to be the first pick overall. Ended up going to the Jets. I want to say 2 or 3. Doesn't matter. Hasn't had the career he's expected. Although last year with the Panthers, who ended up picking number 1 after trading up, but he had a winning record and threw twice as many touchdowns as he did interceptions. So clearly, talent-wise, Shanahan hasn't had a quarterback like this other than Trey Lance. Lance hasn't never worked out for them. They ended up shipping him away to the Cowboys. But Darnold gives them a little bit of mobility. Purdy's got some mobility, surprising mobility, but a lot more arm strength and arm talent than Purdy does. You just wonder if a week of practice, and then he had camp because Purdy was still dealing with that UCL, is enough and how the performance would be. The Bengals have had mixed results against backup quarterbacks. The nightmare game against Mike White stands out to a lot of people. But you remember Mike White was playing. Was that Sam Darnold starting or was that Zach Wilson? Did they have Wilson, Darnold, and Mike White at the same time? They may have. Anyway, the 49ers also dealing with Deebo Samuel, who'll be out, and potentially Trent Williams was still doubtful as the time of recording this. We'll see if he practices on Friday's practice. By the time you watch this, you could probably update me then. We're from the future. But Niners are still the same team. They're still a very dynamic play action, wide zone, completely switch up what they're doing and running. They'll run like 5 staple concepts and they'll run it out of 5 different formations, or they will uh, shift a guy or move a guy or motion a guy to get to that formation and snap it right away. And you're just never able to be ready for them. But they do like to throw over the middle. They're not so much a vertical sideline team. They're looking for spacing. They're looking to create mismatches through that play action, through the switch releases and stack sets. Um, Kittle can beat you. Ayuk is a very good receiver, one of the most underrated receivers in the league. They can still beat you. Christian McCaffrey, clearly one of the best running backs in the league and a great fit for their system. The Bengals will have their handful on defense, but if they can get to Darnold, if he's the one who's playing, Darnold has the propensity to fumble the ball. And so look for that. Look for potentially some strip sacks and causing a little chaos and getting him uncomfortable pretty much early in the game. If it is Brock Purdy, though, I think you can blitz him and cause a little bit of confusion. Get him to throw that ball over the middle a little bit quicker than he wants. And maybe that's when Dax Hill or Nick Scott or maybe Jordan Battle plays. And we see that middle of the field take advantage of Purdy the way the Vikings did. On offense for the Bengals, this very good Niners defense, one of the best defenses they'll face all year. I say one of because you're going to go against Pittsburgh, you're going against Cleveland and Baltimore in the division. So it's not anything they haven't handled before. They got to worry about Nick Bosa, who plays both sides, will rush both sides. It's going to be a test for both Orlando Brown and Jonah Williams. I'm expecting Orlando Brown to play. He says he would. Zach Taylor says that he's progressing faster than expected. We'll see. He's practiced lightly. So if he elevates on Friday to full practice, that'll give us our idea on where he's at. If he's just light again, could be questionable again, and we'll see how it goes once Sunday arrives. Bengals got to be able to stick to the run game, got to be able to protect up front, slide towards Bosa if you have to, slide away and give tight end chip help towards Bosa's side. Whatever side he lines up on, they got to be able to adjust on the fly. I wonder if a full week of Brown, if he does being out, is it Cody Ford the next guy up? Or is that when Deontay Smith gets up? Is that when Jackson Carman plays left tackle? Be interesting to see how that goes if we get to that point. Bengals also have to get T. Higgins right, Tyler Boyd right, get those guys involved. And once they do, once they're a big part of the offense, it's funny. I thought of this last night watching that Bills Bucks game. Once the Bills, because the Bills have been struggling, they have all their conversation in Buffalo is very similar to how we've been talking about the Bengals. Oh, they're not the play calling. The quarterback is being asked to do too much. The line's no good. They don't have enough speed on offense, yada, yada. All these same things. One of the points I was thinking in my head was, well, if you're getting more out of Gabe Davis, if you're getting more out of Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid, and I like Khalil Shakir a whole bunch. He's on my shadow team if you guys participate in that event in the offseason, which we'll get to. If you don't know what that is, you can join in. But I was thinking once those guys start contributing at a high level or at the level of expectation, at least one of them have a big game every other week, the offense will be fine and they'll find their pacing and won't have to just rely on Allen and Diggs playing hero ball all the time. And I think that's very similar to the Bengals. And it showed up last night because Shakir and Kincaid and Gabe Davis all had career nights. Same thing for the Bengals. If they can get T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, if Irv Smith can catch some balls, if we're waiting on a Joe Mixon game, right? Usually has a few a year. When does that happen? When will that happen? But if one of those guys could step up and have a big performance and it just doesn't have to just be Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow playing hero ball, well, then the offense is going to look much better. Clearly, it goes without saying, but it kind of does because it's been so long since we've seen it. I'm hoping for that this week. You should get your chances on the outside to go to Chase and Higgins. Niners, last time you remember that game in 2021, this one kind of made us realize, hey, they're going to put the ball on Burrow's in his hands, on his shoulders, on his back, put the team on his back. and they're going to ride him as far as they can go. It was kind of our first glimpse that they could do it if Zach Taylor took the leash off, and he did. The Niners played a lot of two high safeties then, and they still are a team that'll do that a bunch. They'll play the run. They're very versatile with their safeties, with their linebackers, because Fred Warner can cover, with Hufanga, who can play all over the place, and he'll show he's playing too high and then rip down the field and turn it into an extra man in the box. You can catch them if you're correct with some outside shots, but they're going to try and keep everything over the middle and funneled into the middle of the field towards their safeties, towards their linebackers, and not towards their corners. That's where Irv Smith, Tyler Boyd, and maybe you're getting Jamar Chase in the slot. Maybe you're getting him on crossing routes. Maybe you're getting T. Higgins on those backside digs. Those are the plays to look for the Bengals offense. We're going to jump into the trade deadline and the players that I've got my eye on that I think the Bengals should make, and it won't cost an arm and a leg after this. So I've got 3 players I think the Bengals should go after without spending too much, because that's probably the part of it. Someone asked, hey, what's the issue with the Bengals in trading, and why don't they do this more? Remember, they did trade Carlos Dunlap after he had to blow up to get out of here. That's the only way they would trade him. If he knew what he was doing. You had to act a fool in order to get out of the organization and get some more playing time elsewhere, which he did, and he got what he needed to. That's not the point. Bengals were kind of forced to do that. They almost traded A.J. McCarron on Halloween a few years ago. So it's not as that they're not active with it. They aren't asleep at the wheel. They value their guys or their picks more than other teams do. So yeah, look for like day 3 pick swaps or day 3 picks to give away in order to find upgrades for this team. But I did. First guy up is from the Tennessee Titans, Denico Autry, and he's a defensive lineman. And I say defensive lineman without a position because he has played all across the defensive line in his career, stopping with 3 teams. He's 33 years old now. He's played forever. He's 6'5", 285 pounds, but he's played over the B gap at defensive tackle for 1,661 snaps in his career, 1,991 snaps over the tackle at 5 tech, which means like the 3-4 defensive Bengals run. He has done that a whole bunch. And then he's played another 1,847 snaps at the defensive end position, which could help the Bengals as well if you need it. But the last 5 years, basically, he's had at least 6 sacks. He's going on 6 sacks again this year. He's already got 4 through 7 games this year, 18 pressures as well. Played for Vegas, played for Indy, played for Tennessee. You could probably get him for what is expected as a 6th round pick from the Titans, who are sellers at the deadline. They originally signed him to a 3-year, $21 million deal. He's been completely worth that for them. But if you were to trade for him, give up a 6th round pick, you would have to have about $4 million the rest of the year in cap space. The Bengals could absorb that. They've got $12 million. They're in great shape to do this. Wouldn't kill them. You get a Denico Autry. You let him rotate in the defensive tackle spot, mostly as your nickel defensive tackle. Keep those other guys fresh. Right now, they're forced to use BJ Hill and DJ Reader in that position. They don't have enough juice. They really can't do as much as they would like to. They'd like to use Osai there. They'd like to use Cam Sample there. Denico Autry is one of the poster childs for being able to play DN and kick in and play D tackle and be just as effective, if not more effective, inside. So I think he'd be a great fit, lessen some of the need for Zach Carter and Josh Tupou to do a lot, lessen some of the need for Myles Murphy. In fact, I think he'd be a great mentor for Myles Murphy because of the same body type. It's hard to get Trey Hendrickson. He can show you things, but they're completely different body types. Sam Hubbard isn't the athlete Myles Murphy is. And then Joseph Osai and Cam Sample are also different body types from Murphy. So get a guy that's also 6'5", 280, which I think Murphy could end up being for sure. He's like 275, but with those long arms and that same type of athleticism, as you can see on the film that I just put up, I think it'd be a good mentor for him. And for a 6th rounder, what are we talking about? And this is from a guy who covers the Titans. And when you ask, hey, what do you think Autry would go for? My 6th rounder. Okay, let's do it. And I'd be all for it. Need to upgrade the defensive line, but we're going to get to the offensive side. I've got 2 guys from the Patriots who seem like sellers. At least that's what the reports are. Teams are sniffing around the New England Patriots. Can you go get one of these tight ends? Maybe. And then I've got an offensive lineman here. So first up, Hunter Henry of the New England Patriots, will be 29 years old soon. He's 28.8 to be exact, but the tight end there, he's been there for 3 years, originally signing a 3-year, $37.5 million deal. If the Bengals were to take him on, they'd need $5.8 million in cap space, which they have. So far you could fit Autry and Henry if you wanted to. You could even maybe get them to keep some of that money. Point is, he's got 20 catches, 210 yards, and 2 touchdowns so far this year that would clear anything the Bengals are doing at tight end. Henry has been a productive player for a long time. Had 9 touchdowns in 2021 with the Patriots. Over his career, he's got 11.9 yards per catch, which would be second on the team right now. I mean, for where everyone is, all the numbers are down for the Bengals. But 57% in his career for contested catches. And if you remember when he was with the Chargers when he was a young man, people thought this is a guy that was on pace to be a top 5 tight end in the league. Injuries happened, and then he's been stuck in this Patriots offense that hasn't been able to really throw the ball and be a high-powered passing offense since Tom Brady left. You'd get Henry for the final 11 games of the year. What could you get out of him? And potentially more, hopefully playoffs and all that. But I think he'd be a good fit. He's a down-the-field guy more than what the Bengals have had. That's the thing with like Hayden Hurst. He wasn't a downfield threat, wasn't a downfield target. We thought Irv Smith could do that. We haven't seen it yet. But Hunter Henry is one of the better downfield receivers. He also plays 50% of his snaps in the slot, which Bengals do a lot with the receivers. They like to go empty and spread it out. He's 10% also as out wide. So again, fits the offense very well. He's serviceable as a blocker. He'll get in the way. He's got decent size. It's not some great blocking tight end, but he's fine. It's not like you have to take him off the field or anything like that. Probably the same as a Hayden Hurst, honestly, in terms of where they are as a blocker. Fine. And not a lot of teams could take on Hunter Henry, Hayden Hurst, Hunter Henry. Oh, this HH. This has got to happen. What are their middle names? That's what we need to find out. But not a lot of teams could take on his salary because a lot of these contending teams that are buyers at the deadline probably looking at this like, okay, we can't afford to take on a $5.5 million hit at this point, and the Bengals can. So it puts them in a unique situation where they could potentially be buyers here. And if the Patriots are selling even more, what are we talking about? A 5th rounder for Hunter Henry? 6th rounder for Hunter Henry? If you're already spending these 6 on Denico Autry, you might have to do some pick swaps, get a little creative. Maybe they want someone of yours. Well, I got my eye on one other Patriot. And I should say, Mike Gesicki, too. He's on a 1-year deal. His would be super cheap to acquire. And we're talking 6th, 7th round pick based on the reports from New England. That could be done as well. But he's strictly a slot guy. You really can't put him in line. But you got Drew Sample. You would still have Irv Smith. Maybe a package Irv Smith in that deal. I don't know. Idea here is that you can find a tight end. Either one of the Patriots guys should be available for pretty cheap. But I got one other position here. And that's Michael Onwenu from the Patriots. He's 26 years old. Well, not even 25.8. So again, I'm overestimating his age here, but you need $1.8 million if you want to trade for him. He's 6'3", 350 pounds, former 6th round pick, a guy I wanted at the time out of Michigan. He's played 2,883 snaps in his career, 950 of them at right tackle, 1,400 at right guard, 400 at left guard. So he can play all these positions as needed, even if you bring him in as a backup. Over his 4 seasons, only given up 6 sacks. He's got a 98.3 pass block efficiency going on. That'd be great on this interior offensive line and specifically at left guard. Last year was one of the highest graded pass protecting guards in the NFL, according to Pro Football Focus. And the Patriots aren't using him. And they used him at right tackle last week. So, I mean, maybe they found a spot for him recently. But again, the Patriots reports are saying 6th rounder for him. And man, let me tell you, with just, he's in the final year of his deal, like all these guys are. This is a guy that's entering his prime. This is a deal that other good teams would make and find a way to get Onwenu to play for you at the very least as your 6th offensive lineman. We saw Cody Ford have to come in the game last week. If you had an Onwenu instead and he could play right tackle and you move Jonah to the left, instantly you're upgraded for the long haul. And we've seen the last few years, the backups have had to play at some point. Are we comfortable with Cody Ford? Are we comfortable with Jackson Carman? Are we comfortable with Trey Hill? Are we comfortable with Cordell Volson at left guard? And that's where and when you could potentially be like, hey, he's a better option. You upgrade the pass protection again with this offensive line. You sign him for cheap in the offseason to keep him, and you continue to develop him because you're not going to have Kappa for that much longer. You're not going to have Karras for that much longer. These guys are on the year 2 of their deals, on 3-year deals, and after that, you probably let them go. So one more year, and you're going to be needing guard help. You're going to need interior offensive line help, and that's where and when you comes in. And in fact, he could end up being your starter at right tackle next year instead of putting a first round pick or high second round pick wherever you end up taking that guy, because I don't think it'll be a free agent. Wherever you want to spend your first or second round pick at a right tackle, you could be saved a little bit with him when you playing that position. He can play it. I wouldn't say he's a future right tackle starter, but I've been surprised by it's mostly because he's only 6'3". But I would be all in on him when you Gesicki, Hunter Henry, Denico Autry for sure. There's a couple other guys, maybe running back. I could see call up the Commanders. What would you take for Antonio Gibson? Are we talking 7th, 6th rounder? Would the Packers be interested in getting rid of A.J. Dillon, who's coming off a big game, so maybe not. But you get some power and some size back there at the running back position. Again, we're talking day 3 pick swaps here. The Bengals should be in on this. They can afford the 3 guys I laid out today with their $12 million, and they're probably the only contending team that can afford all that. 49ers got a lot of cap space, but it's funny money. They can't do anything with it. The Bengals can, and the Bengals have great cap health in the next few years. You could absorb these guys this year without killing yourself and help push yourself over the edge. And I'm not saying go out and flip a first round pick for somebody or go out and make a big splash and get the big name guy. These guys could help you and help this team out right now and make your team better and potentially be fixtures for the next couple of years if you want to keep these guys for longer than that. So that's where I'm at. That's where I think could help this team. Questions are, what are the odds? What are the chances? I misspoke a little bit earlier in the week when I went on the Lockdown Bengals podcast. I was thinking of an old report on the spot. It wasn't a report. It was a hint. It was a source, I should say. I'm not a reporter, so I don't get into this area too often. When we were talking in March, when the Rams were considering trading Matt Stafford, Aaron Donald, and Jalen Ramsey, the Bengals called, wondering what it would take to get these guys. They mostly inquired about Jalen Ramsey, and I misremembered the what I was told. I went back and looked and re-clarified. It wasn't exactly that they called about Aaron Donald. I said they called about Aaron Donald. I just meant they called to see what the Rams were doing and trading and what was happening, and they were. And Aaron Donald's got a list of teams that he would and wouldn't go to. Not that I know if the Bengals are on it or not. I don't believe they are on the list that he would go to, but maybe that changed. But the point there was that they called about Jalen Ramsey, who's an all-pro player being traded. They do their homework to at least say, hey, are you guys looking for a 5th rounder? Like, what are you guys looking for here? What's the objective? What are you trying to do? They're not asleep at the wheel. They are calling. They are making they're just not, they're probably just not even close. Like if they're like, hey, what do you want for this guy? And they're like, oh, we want a 3rd round pick. They're like, we'll give you a 6th. And then some other team calls and goes, we'll give you a 5th. And the Bengals are like, well, we tried. That's probably how it goes, to be honest with you. So that's why they don't get involved more. Hopefully they do. I think they're in a Super Bowl window. They're in a championship window, and they got more cap space than most teams. Why? Why does your backup running back room look like this? Why does your tight end room look like this? Why does your D tackle room look like this? Why is your backup offensive lineman situation so poor? Here's how you fix it, and you can do it at the trade deadline. The last 4 teams that made it to the Super Bowl, won the Super Bowl, they all made trade deadline trades. This is a part of the NFL experience for improving your talent, getting your team better, improving your roster. The Bengals need to do it. This is the last infinity stone in the gauntlet. Go and make a trade at the deadline. It rejuvenates the team, the players, the fan base. It lets you know that you believe we're all in. Lets you know that you believe this team can do it, and it just needs a little push back over the hump. Maybe if the Bengals win on Sunday versus the 49ers, that will change their idea, change their plans. I doubt it. I think they are probably stuck in their ways the way they are, but they have surprised us countless times over the last 3 years or so since Joe Burrow's been here. Yeah, that'd be fair to say. So maybe they do it one more time at the trade deadline. this week. This is Bengals on the Brain. I'm Joe Goodberry. The show is brought to you by First Star Logistics. You've got a little bit of time to get in on that jukebox giveaway. That thing is awesome. You want to be in on it. Some people have asked in the comments below, how do I find it? There should be a link in the description. Go to the Twitter pages. We had one guy ask, can we do something for the guys that don't have Twitter accounts? We really want to promote the Twitter accounts. A lot happens on Twitter that you guys maybe don't see. There's a lot of discussion, a lot of activity, a lot of posts, a lot of clips of all the great things First Star does and gives away, and the family environment and everything that they are promoting. You get more of it there. And then for our accounts, the guys that create content, the Maliks and myself and Dave Labham, and you see more of what we're doing, more of the discussion, more of the film breakdowns from me, more of the clips and things that don't make it onto the show. You should create a Twitter account. It's a good time on there. But if you don't, we will think of some things. I do some giveaways here in the comment section once in a while when I have hats to give away, shirts, whatever, books in the past. So speaking of it, I still think we've got Bengals on the Brain books here. Do I have one behind me? I do. Ooh, now it's directly behind me. Not easy to point to. I got the pilot helmet there for Luke Skywalker. But this has been the show, episode 28 already. Can you believe it? I got the Bengals this week beating up on Sam Darnold 27-24 in San Fran. Who dey?
Dave Lapham here, and every day I am grateful for my experience to have played professional football. As a player, I realized self-motivation, leadership, and appreciating your teammates are key. At First Star Logistics, you can use those same attributes to create the life you want for you and your family. Build your future by working hard like I did. You'll see results both on and off the field. Call First Star Logistics today and be part of our winning team.